Good evening and welcome to Thinking Thursday. Had a few glitches there for a moment. I did have a presentation with the PowerPoint or pictures and things for you to see, but that did not work out tonight. So we can do it without it. It makes it more meaningful and it actually would have made it easier for me because that's how I plan to follow along. But we are here and I am so glad to be back with you. It's been 2 weeks since Thinking Thursday. We were on a brief hiatus while I went to a training. The training's over and I am back. And tonight's topic is how can all hearts and minds be clear when things are so crazy? I'll explain that in a little bit. But as always, we start off with some breathing because that's so important. Why breathing? Breathing allows you to clear your mind, settle down, calm down, and focus. And that is what we want an opportunity to do. Just focus. So, we're going to take this time to do some breathing, get our focus in together, and get ready to talk tonight and see just how clear our hearts and minds can be. For those of you who have never been with us, let me tell you about our breathing. Every week we start with 3 deep cleansing breaths. Why? When you do deep breathing, you allow your body to calm down. Of course, you're not a breathe. You're alive. You're breathing. But when you're taking in deep cleansing breaths, you're taking oxygen into your body. It allows your mind to be clear. It allows blood to flow happily through your body. So we're going to take a moment to do that. I will give you a count of 4 to breathe in and 4 to breathe out. As I do that, you'll take a moment to just breathe, and hopefully, after some breathing, you'll feel a little more calm, you'll feel good, and we'll be ready to talk about a not so easy topic, but one I think is necessary and beneficial. So, I want you to breathe in, 2, 3, 4, out. 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Hopefully, those few breaths gave you a moment to just woosah and to just think for a moment and to calm down for some of the cares of the day. Um, Take a moment right now if you're watching to share. If you don't know how to share, just look below the picture, look below the video, and hit the word share. Share, let others join in this experience we're having today. So, as we get ready to get started, we want others to be a part of this adventure called Thinking Thursday. So, as I said, we're switching a little bit, but let's talk about the topic. The topic is how can our hearts and minds be clear in a crazy world? Well, that statement is one you hear many ministers say, and I went to a church and everywhere, every Sunday, that's how the pastor ended the service. Are all hearts and minds clear? And my crazy mind, what I was saying, and what if it's not? What if somebody said no? Well, that never was an option, but man, I always thought about that. But and I heard someone recently talk about that, all hearts and minds clear. Well, we look at our world right now, and it's hard for our heart or our mind to be clear. So we think because things are crazy. I want to spend some time thinking about just talking about what would make our hearts and minds not be clear, but then moving forward to how do we do that? How do we get to that place? Before I get started, I do want to say Happy Earth Day. And what is Earth Day? Well, it was initially celebrated in the United States in 1970, and in 1990, it became an international or global event. It's a day to celebrate the Earth, to look at how much we're doing to the Earth, to pollute it, look at, in this case, we can look at what is global warming doing to the world? What are we doing to the world? So it's a day to stop and say, hey, maybe we shouldn't destroy our planet, even though we really are. But that's what it's all about. I can now see some comments. Hello, Denise. Hello, Sister Mama Sonia. Glad you joined in tonight. So, as I said, we'll be talking about all hearts and minds being clear. So, what are some things that get in the way? As I said, the visual presentation wouldn't work out at the last minute, so I'll just talk about it. Some of the things I want to address briefly that get in our way of our heart and mind being clear: COVID-19 and inequities in healthcare, policing, violence in our community, economic disparities. I had a long list of things I could have discussed, and at the last minute, I even changed it. But these are some things that really can hinder our ability to have a clear heart and mind. But let's look at it. When we look at COVID 19 and the health disparities that are evident, more evident because of COVID 19, it can be pretty daunting. Um, but let's look at it. It's not new. The health disparities are not new. And I mentioned those. If you're in the chat and you can think of some other things that can cause our hearts and minds to worry or be concerned, drop them in and I'll share them. But when we look at our health disparities in the African American community, we see that they've been here for years. As long as we've been here in America on this soil, there have been health disparities. When we look at in our current time, because of history, we don't have a trust for the health care system because we know we've been treated unfairly, and it still happens today. As Black women, when you go in, if you present certain things, it's like, oh, well, you get over it. You don't need to peel for it. You don't need this. You may not be treated often with the same dignity and respect that you feel you deserve. You may not be heard, and you have to fight to be heard. That is an inequity. That is something that makes your heart not be clear, makes your mind not be clear. And it can be in a physical sense. If you're having an issue with your heart and you aren't being heard, well, that is a problem. So, how can all hearts and minds remain clear? Hmm. We look at policing, policing. That's a scary thing. We are all happy. Well, I won't say all. Well, those in the chat, because I know them, they are happy that for the turnout of the Chauvin trial. We're pleased that finally you can see like justice is about to occur. Some he can be found guilty when we haven't seen that in the past. However, that doesn't mean that the battle is over because while the trial was going on, there was another murder in the same state, not far from where the trial was going on, and Deontay's funeral was today. Policing in America, when it comes to us, is a thing that makes your heart and your mind feel like they cannot be clear. Violence, violence in our community. Last year, there were over 200 murders in the city of Dallas. In Houston, I'm not sure how many, but it had maybe 300. That the number, and if you look at and how many of those were in our community, we're going to break all these down. I'm just right now telling you some things that go on that could cause our hearts and minds not to be clear. But we are going to talk about, okay, so how do we get them to be clear? Economic disparities. This is when I changed from something else that was on the list because I was watching the news earlier. 41% of Black owned businesses in the Dallas area closed during COVID. 41%. 17% of white owned businesses closed. So when you look at economic disparities, wow. You think of your ownership of your business as that is your ticket out, that is your freedom, that is your way to economic success. But 41% of all African American owned businesses in the DFW area, and that's just Dallas, Fort Worth. Who knows about, we looked at the country. I didn't have time to get that statistic. But economic disparities, a big issue, makes your heart and your mind not want to be clear. But what is the impact of all of this? How does this impact our mental wellness? We see an increased rate in suicide, increased anxiety, increased depression, and more. But as we frame this from a mental wellness point of view, let's talk for a second about suicide. Traditionally, Black people were lower on the list of those committing suicide. It's just something we didn't do. Well, that has changed. And what the population that it has changed the most, that is the most disturbing, is in our young people. As of 2018, suicide became the second leading cause of death of Black children ages 10 to 14. Stop and think about that number again, ages 10 to 14. That is the second leading cause of death among Black children. Children, think of a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, 12, 13, 14-year-old, and know that this is the age group where suicide is their second cause of death. It is the third leading cause of death for 15 through 19. Think of your high schoolers and middle schoolers committing suicide. Data from 2001 to 2015 suggests that those 12 and under are dying at an unusually high rate, and it's higher than their white counterparts. Our children are killing themselves. We have to stop and look at what's going on and why. What can we do to make that change? We've talked about anxiety and depression during this time, and it has definitely increased during this time of COVID. One of the reasons I like to say is everything I talked about earlier. All of these things that make our heart and mind not be clear cause anxiety. We're worried if we're driving and we see a police car pass by. We might just be worried. We're worried and anxious if we have a child who doesn't quite get it. So they go out and they're on their happy go lucky way. We're worried if we have to go to the doctor. We're scared. Am I going to go there and get COVID because I went to the doctor? Am I going to go there and I'm not going to be heard? They're just not going to get me. What's going to go on? So it's worry. Violence. Why is it if I want to live in a predominantly African American neighborhood in a large city, I might have to live in a food desert? Economic disparities. Why is there so much violence? In Houston, there this year, and it is only April 22nd, there have been 110 murders. Thank you for sharing, Sister Mama Sonia. There have been 110 murders already. Now, not all of these are necessarily in our community, but a lot of them are. Wow. Um, the other thing I wanted to look at was mass shootings. So I looked at some statistics on mass shootings because it's just crazy. And actually, the data goes back. The first one that was considered a mass shooting, unfortunately, was right here in my home state of Texas at the University of Texas when uh, the person shot from the tower. And that was in 66, I believe, and they've been keeping statistics on mass shootings since then. So some interesting numbers, and I just wanted to look at just this century, 2000, 1,118 people have been injured due to mass shootings. 742 have been killed. In just the last 5 years, 861 have been injured. 360 have been killed in mass shooting. What is a mass shooting? The definition has sort of morphed. It is a killing where a shooting situation where four or more people are killed. one statistic I read saying that under the Obama administration, it was changed to three or more. When I looked at the data and read some of the data, it didn't include gang violence. And the reason why I say I didn't include it, at least a lot of them that I read, as I read the description, I didn't see some of those things there. So does this mean how we categorize it that that number is even higher? But that's another issue that causes concern. Um, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. What do we do with this? So as I painted a picture that seems kind of grim, I'm not going to spend much more time on the grimness. I want to talk about what do we do? This is the world we live in. So we have some choices. One of the choices I say we can do is reframe our view and find a point of view that is filled with optimism and hope. Now, I'm not giving you any more statistics because they're grim. So if I give you the statistics of what's going on and how bad things look, and you might think, hope, what am I going to have hope for? Optimism, really? This is ain't nothing to be optimistic about. I disagree. And I'll tell you why. If you work from the framework that all is bad and you have no hope, then you won't go on. I think we may have done an episode just dealing with hope, the importance of hope, having that hope. And for me, that hope is more than just, I hope maybe kind of sort of it'll happen. It is my spiritual foundation, my belief in God that, okay, something better got to happen because this ain't working. You know, I look at the mass shooting, I look at racial injustice, I look at policing, I look at violence. I've got to change my thought. And my thought, the next steps are things we can do to reframe that thought, to develop a sense of optimism, to think, okay, there are other things we can do because this is not working. So, first thing, and these are not in any order, as I said, this was a very fluid night. I was changing things in and out. And so the order is not necessarily in a hierarchical order. It's these are some things to do. But the first one I want to mention is find you a cause and do what it takes to make a difference. Join an organization that's making a difference. I just looked up and I think I have them here. There are so many organizations around that are doing things. Everybody can't do the same thing, everybody can't do everything, but everybody can do something. So some organizations that I'm just going to name about 15. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. They're in different parts of the country. African American Planning Commission, American Association of Blacks in Energy, and that's interesting because they work to get things to help Blacks learn more about energy and be more productive and working in that industry. The Center for Black Equality, Executive Leadership Council, Black United Fund, National Black Chamber of Commerce, National Council of Negro Women, the National Urban League, the United Negro College Fund, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, better known as the NAACP, 100 Black Men of America, 100 Black Women, Black Lives Matter, the Innocence Project, My Brother's Keeper, Black Women's Blueprint, the Empowerment Program. Some of you may have never heard of any of those, or maybe you are so together you've heard of them all. I'm listing that so you can know that there are organizations out there. So if we are going to have our heart and mind clear, it's going to take work. You don't have to go out and reinvent the wheel. Find an organization that speaks to what area you want to work on, what area you want to make a difference in. If you are in any profession, there is a Black organization associated with it. There is the Association of Black Engineers. There's a Association of Black hairdressers. There's Association of Black Psychologists. Whatever you're doing, there typically is an association because we've been locked out of theirs for so many years. In order to support and do, we had to create our own. And you know what? If you have an idea or something you want to do, a way you want to make a difference, and there isn't an organization that exists, create one. Because every organization that I mentioned started because someone had an idea, had a goal, had a desire to make a difference, so they started it. Start your own. Next tip is don't be afraid. That goes for so many things. Okay, what are we afraid of? If you look at everything I said, and I only listed very few things that are troubling, that could cause a lot of fear. You could be scared to go out of your house. What is fear going to do for you? Nothing. Fear will cripple you. Fear will keep you in your house. Fear will kill you because you won't be afraid to do anything. We talk about wellness from a physical, spiritual, and financial point of view. From a spiritual point of view and a Christian point of view, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the power of love and a sound mind. So your sound mind says, the world may be crazy, but I will persist. I will survive because God's going to help me survive. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to be the one to start that new organization, like I said before. Don't be afraid to be the one to say, I'm going to make a difference. Now, not being afraid doesn't mean maybe you're going to go out and put yourself in harm's way, but know what you need to do and how you need to define what you're going to do for your community and for yourself. Don't let fear get in the way. That fear can be real. Now, there's a healthy fear. There's sometimes we might not need to go in certain situations because they're just not safe. But if you're living in fear, you're not living anymore. You will stop yourself from living. Develop a positive support system. What do I mean by positive support system? One of the things that, one of the negative byproducts, so to speak, of COVID is that, we had this long period of isolation. And many people still aren't getting out and weren't getting out to the degree that we were out before. But you weren't going to your friend's house. You weren't going out to the movies. They were actually closed. You weren't going out to restaurants. You weren't going out to just be with people and interact with people. We interact with people on Zoom, and that's just not the same. But it's still a way to have a support system. So when you develop your own positive support system, it's a I am because we are situation. You help them, they help you. And you lift each other up. Because, as I said, all of these things are going on that are negative. But you have to be able to put yourself in a situation where, oh, okay, there is some support. Now, we can all also have that same support system and we can call it everything is bad. Well, when you find yourself, you're doing that, that's not going to be good. That may be the reality, but if we are reframing this to say, okay, it's bad, but I need to do something different, develop that positive support system, those positive people that are going to be around to help you when you need help and you're there to help them. It is an I am because we are mentality. And so you're going to remember to support each other. In this time when we're still not just in small groups or large groups hanging out in a small house, you can still remember to support each other. Remember that there are things you can do to support your loved ones, things you can do to support your community. Whatever that may be, you be able to be that voice, that reason, be that support. Um, Someone stated a happy fact: blind people smile even though they have never seen anyone else's smile. Even with the mask on, your eyes can smile. Because when you do smile, your eyes change, they light up. So even though we're still wearing masks, and I hope you are, you can still smile. As a part of that supporting each other, just be able to smile at somebody. Think about if you're having a really rough day and somebody just smiles and says, "How are you? How are you doing?" And they say something to you. Yeah, it can change how you feel. It can motivate you to do, just move a little further. And that's where that positive support comes in. Another thing to do is to take care of yourself. We've talked about self care. When you look at um, everything I've mentioned, all the areas that I've mentioned, as I said, they can weigh heavy on you. As they weigh heavy on you, you can get caught up and be consumed with the worry, the anxiety, the depression, the fear that can cripple you. If you allow it to, it can. So, taking care of yourself, a lot of the other steps, having a positive support group, getting mental health counseling, going to your doctor because the body is one. It is a Western concept that there's body, mind, spirit. But really, can you look at yourself and say, this is the only how the part, the mind, this is only the spirit, this is only the body? No, because when one part is impacted, another part is impacted. What do I mean? Let's look at your mind. If you are depressed, if you're anxious, if you're having a mental health issue, it can easily impact your physical health. So, just sticking with the depression and anxiety, because we're seeing so much in society right now, stay depressed long enough, stay anxious long enough, it will impact your eating. Depression can impact your eating. Some people will overeat, they just can't stop. Some people won't eat at all. I'm depressed, I can't eat, I can't eat. Anxiety. Oh my gosh, you feel it. People tend to physically feel anxiety in their body. Some people it's in their shoulders. They're like, oh God, yes, my shoulders are so tight. Some people feel it in their stomach. It's like, oh, my stomach is just queasy. Some people have headaches, all when they get anxious. So when you're saying take care of yourself to manage, to let your heart and mind be clear, you've got to embrace what's going on. Now, this is one that when I say it like this, it's hard for some people. So I've got to really break it down. I say embrace your um, anxiety, embrace your fear, embrace your depression, embrace all your negative energy. You know why? Not to hold on to it. If I embrace it, I can own it and I can do what I want to with it. And then I can say, I'm going to let it go. It's mine. I can get rid of what's mine. I can say, okay, Lord, here's my first, I'm holding it all right here. It's my depression, my anxiety, my fear, all my negative stuff is right here. I don't want it. So now I can take control of it and do what I want. I don't have to let it control me. Here's my fear about the world. Here's my fear. Here's why my heart and my mind are not clear. All of these things. So I'm going to take all of these things and I'm going to take control of what happens to all of these things in my life. Is my life, I'm going to take care of it. So you begin to take care of it. Somebody says your chest is tight right now. You know, if you're anxious, you're nervous, you feel it. You physically feel it in your body. Um, as a people, we've gone through a lot, just looking at us as a race. We talk about post traumatic slave syndrome, we talk about PTSD. One of the things I want to mention and remind that PTSD has physiological symptoms, and it's post traumatic stress syndrome that an event, a major traumatizing event has happened in your life, and it was so traumatizing that you relive it over and over. You may go weeks and months, but it comes back and you relive it. And when you do, it has physical symptoms. So when I'm talking about taking care of yourself, because all of these things, every time we turn on the news and see another police shooting, it's like another dagger in your heart. And sometimes I say you have to turn it off. I've said this many times before in here. You need to be aware, and that's always one of our call to action that I'll talk about in the end. But be aware and be aware of yourself. So as part of that self care, maybe I need to back off. Maybe I don't need to know every statistic about teen suicide. I don't need to know just how bad the shootings are. I need to know that they're happening so I'm an informed, intelligent individual. But do I need to watch every video? If it's going to upset you, no. Part of that self care is knowing what do you have to do for yourself. Someone says, look at photos can improve your mood. Fine, for those of us who are older, we used to actually have a photo. You'd have a photo album and you would look at pictures. Now they're in your phone. You got to scroll through to find. But man, I remember the day when there were really photo albums. So I'm dating myself, and you could look at photos and pictures, and it would be so much fun. Hold on to some of those good memories. I was talking earlier about being optimistic. One way to be optimistic about this bleak world we live in is to look at the past and think, as a people, look at what we've come through. Has it ever been easy for us in this country? No. Look at where we've come from and know that we can keep going. We have the ability to do that. And never, ever lose faith. See, when you lose that faith, that's where, yes, you will feel hopeless. I just can't do it. But never, ever lose faith. Hold on to that faith because that's where your hope is. My faith is in God. Mine is Christianity. And there are people listening who have other faiths. But if you hold on to what you're believing in, for me, I have to believe that God will never leave me or forsake me. I have to believe that I can look at everything and rather than be dismayed, discouraged, disgusted, I'm going to remain hopeful. I'm going to say that yes, I will use everything in my power to make a difference. As I said earlier, find that organization you want to work with, change it, get into it, do something that can make a difference. Um, be around people that are going to do something to help you make that. My call to and we were planning to end hopefully about 5 minutes early tonight. So I'm ready to give you, excuse me, a call to action. Do something. Yeah, do something. Let me repeat that one more time. Do something. If you fail at something, okay, try something else. Or try that again and do it differently. But do something. By do something, I mean looking at every area that we can find something wrong, be it the violence, the economic disparities. A lot of these are out of our control, yet they're in our control. So when I say do something, I mean for my generation, the generation under me, and maybe the generation before, we need to look at how did our children get to the point where violence was their answer? How did our children get to the point where lives didn't matter enough, where they can just shoot each other? How did we get to a situation where we have to be afraid of the cops because they're afraid of us? Whatever you see that I mentioned that is something that is debilitating to you and makes you want to stop, find a way to make a difference. As I mentioned, there's so many organizations that are doing so many things. Be a part of one. I mentioned some. You can Google Black organizations and they'll come up. Look in your neighborhood, find the Black pages in your city. Find a way, but do something. Just don't sit around and do nothing. Believe in yourself and your people, and remember that I am because we are. And as long as we're holding on to that, I had a discussion this week with someone that said, "Oh, Black people just can't work together. We're this, we're that." And I said, I beg to differ. Yes, not all Black people get along because we are people. No people in any ethnic group all get along. But we have survived because we have worked together. And so, if we remember that I am because we are, we can continue to work together to make a difference. We can look at all the things that are there. Thank you, Rita. Rita mentioned a verse I want to share. Thank you, Rita. It says, "Come unto me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." And that verse to me also underscores what I said about owning your pain. Because if you own it, then you can say, okay, Lord, I'm coming here, I'm heavy laden. But we tend to, "No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't have no problem. Black people don't need therapy. I'm good. I don't have no problem. I got this. I can handle it." No, understand you can't. I can't go to God and say I'm heavy and heavy laden. I got too much going on if I don't admit it. So that goes back to saying I gotta admit that I have stuff, and it ain't pretty. Um, and I always like to say, be politically aware. A lot of the issues that we're facing that I've mentioned, we have to work to make a change in the political arena. And coming up soon, I'm going to have a show where we talk about some things I want to do just to get us more politically aware. We have to vote. We have to, and so many things are coming up with voter suppression. We need to be aware about that. What might get in the way of your ability to vote? So we've got to look at that. Stay politically aware, and it's still time to mask up because masking is caring. This Saturday, there is a workshop entitled Africans United for Sanity Now. It's a virtual conference Saturday from 12 to 2:30. The link to this is on the Thinking Thursday Facebook page. That's another opportunity just to look at the mental health in the African American community. This conference is "A Healthy Mind is the Greatest Treasure to Find." So it's another opportunity to do something, to connect with an organization whose purpose is to look at mental health in the African American community. And remember, mental health is real. And as I like to always say in closing, that mental health is health. Um, Everything that impacts you impacts your life. Denise will be working the polls. The polls open May 1st. There are elections in different parts of the state. Get ready, get ready, get ready. It is time again to vote. Every time there's an election, you need to be ready to vote. And being ready, I mean, you need to know what the issues are, what's going on. Vote your heart, vote your conscience, but be educated. So, mental health is health. Mental wellness is wellness. I'm Bronwyn Lucas, and this is Thinking Thursday. If you find yourself stressed out and find it's just too much managing all of the things and your heart and mind just can't be clear, reach out. Give me a call. My contact number is on the Thinking Thursday page, but I'll state it here. It is 682 272 3949 or blucaslpc@gmail.com or ablecc.org is my um, webpage. Reach out. I'm not the therapist for everybody. I will help you find what you need. I strongly believe that it's important for us to take care of our mental wellness because it impacts everything. So until next week, practice good mental health. Take care of yourself, stay involved, and yes, your heart and mind can be clear if you keep your focus. And keep your focus on God, and you can help that heart and mind be clear. See you next week. Bye.